Welcome to the Insider's Insight podcast, where we share with you the thoughts of the individuals who are working for projects that are changing the world. Thank you to our sponsor, Creditcoin, the building blocks of trust. For more details, please visit the show notes below. Welcome to Insider's Insight. Today I have Jason, who is the Global Head of Sales for M-DAQ. And today we're going to be discussing how the old world of finance and the new world of finance are colliding, and then how they're going to interact to bring in new institutional investors into the space. But before we start that conversation, Jason, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hey, thanks, John. Thanks for having me on the show. Extremely honored and privileged to be here with you. You're one of the OGs in this space, so definitely, this is not financial advice. But I wanted to just kind of say that personally for me, my name is Jason. I have been a career banker for most part of my life. And in 2019, I made the move into the world of fintech. I joined M-DAQ, like you said. M-DAQ is a high growth PE invested fintech company that is focusing on the world of foreign exchange with a vision to change the world and to create a world without currency borders. So that's a very high level of what the company is all about. But essentially, I think one of the things that really kind of inspired me to have this chat with you, Sean, is that I think in the past 2 or 3 years, the mainstream adoption of crypto digital assets, CBDCs, has kind of taken a whole life form by itself. And if you look at the world of finance, which is something that I've been in since the day I entered the workforce, it's really an exciting space to be in, because there is so much transformation every single day, and being at the heart of the storm, you get to see things evolve almost literally on a day-by-day basis, right? So being able to combine the knowledge I have in traditional banking, 14 years across multiple banks like Standard Chartered, JP Morgan, and Societe Generale, and bringing that knowledge into the world of fintech and the crypto space, I think is such a privilege, and I'm so excited to be here with you right here, right now.
Perfect. Maybe we begin with explaining what M-DAQ does, because I think what you guys are doing is quite interesting, and then we can maybe move on to see how you guys are trying to bring your expertise into the digital asset space.
Sure. Thanks, Sean. So M-DAQ is a company that was founded 12 years ago. So the word M-DAQ stands for multi-denominated automatic quotation. Might be a mouthful, might be hard to understand, but it's actually a play on the word NASDAQ. It's so much easier to understand. And I also use it on my wife sometimes, because when she asks me questions, so I tell her M-DAQ, man, don't ask questions. That's what M-DAQ means. But it's a very useful way, gets you out of dicey situations sometimes, not all the time. Do your own research. But I wanted to say that M-DAQ was founded 12 years ago with a vision and a purpose to create a multi-currency layer on a stock exchange. Right? Why so? Because I think today most of us, we invest in the US stock exchanges because it is by far the most prolific exchange in the world, right? But for myself, based in Singapore, I get paid in Sing dollars. For someone who's based in Hong Kong dollars. For someone who's based in other parts of the world, the currency of their country. Right? But to invest in a foreign market, the challenge is often that what does the US dollar mean in terms of notional or in terms of real, value to someone who is not based in US dollars, right? So today, if I were to buy a Tesla share, for example, I have to go through a couple of rounds of hoops of work, right? Whereby I have to convert my Sing dollars to US dollars and then buy a share. And then when I sell the share, I sell it in US dollars and then I convert it to Sing, right? The biggest question is, do we know or do we track the price that we paid for in US dollars in Sing terms and the price that we got back at the end of the day in terms of the foreign exchange losses or the gains, right? And what we found out was that apparently, foreign exchange can really play a major role in the way you record your gains or your losses, because you could literally eat away every single cent of gains you could have made for capital gains on the share appreciation. So by creating a multi-currency layer, our goal was to enable investors globally to be able to purchase, see, buy, sell, and track the shares that they purchase on a exchange in their home currency. So imagine being able to buy a Tesla share in Sing dollars, being able to buy a Tesla share in pounds, in euros, in Aussies, based on live foreign exchange rates. So that was our goal in 2010, 12 years ago. And fast forward that in 2015, we entered the world of e-commerce as a bit of a pivot. Again, foreign exchange was at a matrix, at the nexus of this transformation. So today on AliExpress, AliExpress.com, when you buy something on AliExpress.com, the foreign exchange rate guarantee is powered by M-DAQ. So what do I mean by rate guarantee? It means that 24 hours on weekdays, 72 hours on weekends, and for long holidays, we guarantee that the rate does not change throughout the entire period, right? So for example, if today you are in Singapore, if I'm in Singapore, I want to buy something on AliExpress.com, I can actually get the platform to quote me a rate in Sing dollars, and it's not an indicative rate like Amazon. It's a real rate that can be executed, and if you see like $12.95 online in Sing dollars, and you charge your credit card to it, that's what's going to appear on your credit card, $12.95 Sing. And if you refund the item within 3 months or so, depending on the terms and conditions, you get back exactly $12.95, right? So the power behind this technology is enabling users, consumers to be able to make almost instantaneous decisions based on FX rates which speak to them, as opposed to FX rates which are more prevalent on the country of where the platform is based, right? So we are very honored to be able to do that for AliExpress and a couple of international platforms in the world today, providing a new wave of revenue for the platform, and also to allow consumers to be more updated, aware of the prices that they are paying for online, right? So that's really been our transformation. And we have been very much in the space of foreign exchange and looking forward to do more in the world ahead.
So essentially your platform allows companies to become a lot more borderless because they're no longer confined to doing business in their own regions. They can actually do business more globally with the help of your platform, because now you can help buyers gain more trust in guaranteeing that the price that they're purchasing at is going to be fixed, so they're not going to face any FX fluctuations or whatever.
And Sean, you raised a very good point, because fundamentally that's very different from stock trading. If you're going to buy a stock on the NASDAQ, for example, you want your rate to be as close as possible. You want to pay as little FX as possible, so you get floating rates which moves almost instantaneously. But it's very different from a psychology standpoint in the world of e-commerce. Let me tell you why. Right? Today, if I were to say I want to buy a handphone cover on AliExpress, okay, and AliExpress, if they quote it in Chinese yuan, or if you convert it and you quote it in Sing, if I give the users a live feed of FX into the website, what that means is that every second you see the rate change, right? So if I'm buying, say, a handphone cover, and in the morning at 10 a.m. I see the price of this handphone cover converted to Sing dollars, say for example is $10.95, I was like, yeah, that's a good price, right? But if I check it at 12 and it goes to $10.15, which is cheaper, hey, being Chinese, we like to gamble. So the first thing you say is, you know what, let's wait a bit more, right? Maybe at 3 p.m. is $9. I don't know, right? So you wait till 3 p.m. and then you check and you say, oh, now it's $12 because maybe the dollar Sing rate has moved. And what would you do? You would say, okay, it's more expensive. Jikes, I should have bought it at 12 or 10, right? But then you would just forgo the trade. You say, I'll buy it tomorrow. But guess what? Tomorrow never comes, right? So to the platform, you lose the trade. To the user, you miss a trade because you could have bought it. You end up in your cart, but you don't buy it. So nobody wins, right? But today, if I give you a rate that's guaranteed 24/7, you will see at 9 a.m. is $10. You see at 12 o'clock is $10. You help the user have a more informed decision. If that price at the point of time is going to fit your wallet, we guarantee it no matter what happens in the day. If something happens, a black swan event happens, and that comes in to cover the risk, which reviews algo models internally to manage that within data. So that allows the entire risk management to be taken away from the platform, right? You give power to the user because now you have visibility, you have confidence, and we also enable the entire ecosystem to have more active users and active transactional volume. So it's a win-win-win.
So I feel like you can use this ethos when you're looking into helping traditional finance users migrate into the digital world, because of course in the crypto space, markets are 24/7, so everything's fluctuating. And whilst that might be good for speculators and for investors, it's not really good for real-term usage. What are your thoughts on that?
You're absolutely right? Because if you look at the traditional securities exchanges, today you have markets that open once the bell rings at 9 a.m. They close about 5, right? Foreign exchange markets also move in tandem. 9 a.m. market opens, 5 p.m. market closes, right? So what happens after 5 p.m. to next morning? Yeah, you have post-market, you have pre-market. That's fine, right? But it's not liquid. You look at the world of crypto, every single centralized exchange in the world is 24/7, right? So when the FX market closes, dollars, what happens to dollar Sing? What happens to dollar JPY? Right? What happens to all these rates? That is a big problem, right? And can exchanges today be in a position to hedge their foreign exchange exposure? So what do exchanges do? They either put on a fatter margin on non-executable hours, which then eats into the overall cost of buying the digital assets. Or the worst thing is if they do not put on enough of a margin and a black swan event happens at, say, 5 a.m. in the morning, right? And then, the market opens right at 9, and then you're like, oh my God, the entire market has swung so much, and that your supposed margin or buffer that you were holding on to could end up becoming a loss. And that's a danger, because exchanges are good at allowing for a market making arrangement, but you don't have that technology or the expertise in foreign exchange. So to your point about bridging the world of old money, new money, the old world of doing things and a new world of exchanges going forward, foreign exchange is an integral part of those two multiverses. Because the way I look at it is that, if you don't have a proper solution, let's give you a scenario. For example, on the weekend, what happens on Friday at 5:30 p.m. when the FX market closes? Exchanges hold the risk of foreign exchange from Friday night, Saturday whole of Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday morning till 9 a.m. That's more than 70, 80 hours of time, which no one has a clue on how to hedge that foreign exchange risk. Let's say some president on Sunday gets shot, right? And you just imagine the impact to the foreign exchange market, right? And you might have a 2% FX margin. You're going to be out of position. So I think in my personal view that if you can help to ease some of these problem statements, and in my capacity when I speak to many of the crypto leaders in the market, it is a prevalent issue, right? And exchanges want to focus on making money, on commissions, on settlement, on being a market maker. Foreign exchange, yeah, it's a good money making tool, but you don't want to lose money because of foreign exchange, right? So if you can bring those two worlds together, like I was mentioned earlier, well, everyone stands to gain, and the user journey experience gets a lot better.
Where do you think currently crypto is deficient in? Not just in terms of the technical logistics, but more in terms of captivating more users?
I think the current challenge of crypto in the world is that you have a huge mainstream adoption that happened in 2021, right? And you have all this great marketing material going out, renaming of the Staples Center by Crypto.com. You have Matt Damon come in the picture. You have LeBron James, and you have Super Bowl, in the world having almost literally every single major crypto name involved. So you can't evade that. It's in your face, right? So with that adoption, I think a lot of people who either FOMO into this, or family officers that are trying to come into this space, they find themselves grappling with a world which is very different from the ones that we're used to, right? In the past, you go to a bank, you go to a mutual fund, you go to a BlackRock, you can just buy investments per se. It's clear, it's easy. If you're KYC, you're more or less green, right? In the world of crypto, there is a lot more anonymity. Yeah, you can have ether scans and stuff like that tells you who's trading. But at the end of the day, getting into the world of DeFi and the world of crypto isn't as easy as 1, 2, 3, right? And you have a lot of arbitrage happening still in today's crypto markets, right? If you just look at Bitcoin prices on Coinbase, FTX, Gemini, and you notice that there is a bit of a difference, right? So are markets really very much connected? Are they showing a fair price? That is something that needs to be addressed, right? At the same time, today, if you look at the on-ramp and off-ramp functions, you notice that, yeah, it's easy to kind of have a Bitcoin versus a stable coin peg value. But at the same time, when you look at US dollar as a fundamental currency pair that is tagged to Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of the altcoins, the question is it an efficient indicator of value? And even if it was an efficient indicator of value, can you off-ramp in US dollar terms easily? The answer is maybe not, right? Because even if you look at recently the situation in Ukraine and Russia, right, we have all the governments of the world going out saying that, hey, if you are helping the Russian oligarchs move money out of the system, and if crypto happens to be one of those methods or transmissions, the exchange is liable to ensure that sanctioned individuals do not cash out off-ramp via the cryptoverse. And it's easy to say, but it's not easy to do. Right? So using that as an example, you see that, hey, the traditional finance systems, the banking regulatory frameworks, AMLs, kicked in sanctions, have been running in the past 250 years, right? Whereas crypto in the world of centralized exchanges probably only came in the last 5 to 10 years, and more so every single day. But can the two multiverses come together to make the crypto adoption, not only the adoption, but the buying, selling, off-ramp and on-ramping more efficient? I think that is going to be the key thing, because Because just like e-commerce purchasing on AliExpress, Amazon, the faster, the more efficient, the more convenient you can get access to what you want, fast and furious, right? It's going to be a better experience, right? But the thing is that when you don't have a clear, fair system where there is a little bit of murkiness on the value, and again, the fiat element, whereby, like I said, US dollar is still the main currency, which is again pegged, but if you want it in Sing, Hong Kong dollars, it's a lot more tricky, right? So I think that is very much driving that inertia towards more mainstream adoption.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I remember listening to a Bankless podcast with Vitalik, and he said that when he was in Argentina, because the financial system there has already been broken, so people are finding other alternatives to transfer money to and from. What they were actually using was Binance Pay. Now, I don't know much about Binance Pay because I've never personally used it. I tried to do a little bit of research, but I think essentially how it works is you have some money in your Binance account, and then when you make purchases, it automatically withdraws the crypto in that account, but pegged to a fiat currency. But after everything you've said, I think that on-ramp, off-ramp situation is a little bit difficult, because how do you know that the rate you're getting is the correct one? Because they have to do multiple calculations in order to make sure you're getting the right price. And as someone who invests in crypto, I wouldn't mind having all of my assets in crypto if it was this liquid and I could transact with it. But how do I know that this is the most efficient way of functioning my life? And I guess that's the issue that has to be solved. And do you have any answers to that, I guess?
If I had the answer to that, I would be Vitalik Buterin, and I'll be CZ. I'll be seizing my way to the bank or to jail. But you raised a good couple of situations, and you see that already happening in the world of crypto, right? Crypto.com has a Crypto.com credit card, debit card, right? And you can use that card, purchase, buy things, and if you have CRO stake, you do get certain rebates. It's great, right? So you see that in the world where you're trying to combine both the consumer behavior on the ground with digital assets, right? The question is on transparency. Like you mentioned, if I were to use like 0.0001 Bitcoin to buy, say, a can of Coke, right? How much exactly am I paying for the Coke? I don't know if it's $1 in the supermarket. If I scan it, I may end up paying $1.50 equivalent in BTC. And like you said, there are multiple transactional kind of checkpoints where you have, for example, the wallet portion, you have the exchange portion, you have the foreign exchange portion, and you also have potentially the Visa Master that comes in play if you're talking about the credit card form. So that, every single time, just like playing Monopoly, pass go, if you step on a particular tile which is owned by your friend, you pay a fee, right? So being in the payment space, the fintech space, and the crypto space, and also in the banking space, I can tell you every time you have a pit stop, guess what? You can pay a fee, right? So when there are more pit stops, there generally be more fees charged, and that's the problem that is preventing more adoption, because you don't want to. No one wants a bad deal. Everyone wants a fair deal. I wouldn't say you want a good deal, because good is very relative, right? But I want a fair deal. I want to know that if I'm paying $1 for a can of Coke, right, Sean is going to be paying the same $1, right? If we tap it at the same time. But if I'm going to be paying $1 and Sean's going to be paying 95 cents because he has a bit of a upside, then it's not fair, right? So I think fair is important, and one of the key things that is preventing that from happening to a large extent is that a lot of times, when you create a ecosystem which is very much intrinsic, like you mentioned on the Binance situation right there, if you happen to work within the ecosystem, you can control it. Right? But the moment you go out of your ecosystem, you go into another ecosystem which is on another blockchain, things get a bit dicey, right? So I think that is one of the biggest problems that is facing that the cryptoverse is meant to be distributed ledger, is meant to be open, is meant to be visible to everyone. But at the same time, when you are visible to everyone and there is so much information at stake, it becomes harder to track and harder to kind of monetize the actual cost of doing the transaction. So it's a huge black box. I'm sorry I have to say that, but it is looking to be, if anyone can get their sense around foreign exchange, can get a sense around payment costs, payment rails, and bring that to the heart of the consumer, you're gonna go to the moon. You're gonna go to the moon for sure.
Apart from transparency, now we've seen all of the issues that have been occurring with the sanctions in Russia and the controlling of the monetary systems with the truckers in Canada. How do you think we can solve some of these KYC issues to allow crypto to be more widely adopted? Because, it goes really against the heart of the crypto ethos. We want something that is decentralized and not able to be controlled. controlled by any individual. But governments don't like this because they can make an argument that in situations like with the Russia and Ukraine, where you want to use economic force to coerce an individual into stopping evil deeds, if you don't have that control, what do you have?
You have a lot of digital yuan is what you have. So I wanted to just gonna say that because you're absolutely right that when central banks realized that there was all this great stuff happening in the world of crypto, right, and there was the element of control taken away from central banks, you can't miss them at the party, right? You gotta have them in the party because that's how it's gonna be. I remember in 2018 when Facebook, now Meta, right, was called to the Switzerland to attend to 16 central bankers to talk about what the entire Libra project was about, right? It really spoke the entire central bank market because you're talking about 2.8 billion users in 2018 and 2.8 billion users having access to a currency which is controlled by a private organization. It's scary, right? You could really derail not only the large institutional government central funds, but even a small nation could have the entire central currency wiped out in terms of value, right? If everyone started buying DM, instead of their home currency, right? It's very scary. So I wouldn't say that there is a end all be all solution, but I would say that if you look at the world of CBDCs and the world of crypto, they actually should coexist to some extent, right? I think there are proponents saying that, you should be anti-CBDCs because it goes against the whole ethos of cryptocurrency. I don't denounce it. I think it's a real problem, but we all live in a world where our countries and our governments would want to have a certain amount of say, and there is not only just a monetary policy or fiscal policy issue, but it's a political issue. And I'll give you an example on that point, right? China's eCNY, which is one of the really amazing projects that's been launched. I would say that it sounds great, but the moment you move eCNY out of the country and you have a cross-border CBDC arrangement with another central bank, it's no longer just about the value of your currency. You could effectively go into Southeast Asia right now and you tell me how many currencies in Southeast Asia are freely convertible. You can count, like Sing dollars, right? That's about it. Aussie, New Zealand, beyond Southeast Asia, of course, right? Hong Kong dollars, but every single thing else is restricted. Since the 2008 financial crisis, every single thing has been restricted. So if I bring the idea of a CBDC backed by the central government, right, and I say, okay, now I can allow the world to trade eCNY, and I go to a country like, say, Vietnam, for example, where the annual depreciation is in double digits, right? If you are a Vietnamese citizen and you hold Vietnamese dong, which is depreciating every single year at a double-digit rate, versus the eCNY, which is the number 2 largest trading currency in the world, would you A, hold eCNY, or would you B, hold on to VND, or would you C, pray to the gods, right? So I think the answer is quite straightforward. And if majority of people start going in and saying, I'm going to buy eCNY, what's going to happen to the Vietnamese dong, right? Effectively, one country could have a huge political control over another country in some way, form through such policies, by providing a digital version of their currency for massive adoption. Right? You can say, yeah, you have things in order to protect them happening, yes and no, because the moment you go digital, we all know, right? It's a lot harder to trace. And when you have central banks coming to the picture to represent their own country's national interests, it gets a bit dicey. So I think those are things that we need to think about. And I think if there's more adoption and there's more clarity when it comes to CBDCs, crypto is going to go crypto, right? I mean, it's going to be evolving as we go. But if there can be a way, or any country that can combine the best of crypto and have a solid structure of how CBDCs will be run in that country and beyond, I think that is a good first step, right? The next step is going to be for anyone to guess. But as of now, I think if you ask me, my sense is first step, if that can be done and settled, done, sealed, that will add a lot more confidence to the market.
Do you think there is a space for commercial players to play a part in bridging these two worlds? Everything you've said is very interesting. I don't personally have faith in CBDCs, but I do have faith that there are companies out there that have the know-abouts and the entrepreneurial spirit to try and solve some of the issues that governments may have with crypto.
I think absolutely yes. The answer is going to be a resounding yes. And the reason for that is because I think central banks and government entities, they do respect the fact that it is a tough hill to climb alone, right? And there are technologies that are currently in place that allows a faster acceleration of the progress. To give you an example, in Singapore, in 2015, the Singapore MAS and the Central Bank of Singapore basically launched a CBDC project known as Project Ubin, which housed a consortium of players including Temasek, which is our sovereign wealth fund, together with JP Morgan, which is, everyone knows JP Morgan, and a couple of blockchain players to come in to help to build a 5-year multifaceted solution, which would kind of kick off the entire CBDC project, right? So in that sentence alone, I've mentioned a couple of names, and these are definitely not government related. These are, private on its own. And I would say that has allowed not just the government to see how the traditional banking model, payment rails, cross-border payment rails, SWIFT has functioned, and whether or not the CBDC structure can actually allow, a concurrent or a similar approach in that technology space, right? As we all know, CBDCs run on a more private blockchain kind of rail as opposed to the public blockchain, which is more prevalent in the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the other alts. But I would say that CBDCs in general have a lot more to play, because it's not just about the government. You have to have players that come in to help you develop the technology. It's not a one size fits all, right? And seeing that is a huge kind of boost, because if you're doing it alone, it's going to be a lot harder, right? There are technologies like IBM, blockchain, JP Morgan, Onyx, and many of the other players in the scene which have been OGs, if I may say, in the space of blockchain technology. Leveraging on them could give a lot more insight on how you could ring fence the entire project. So I would say yes, the answer is a resounding yes. And companies like M-DAQ, for example, which are experts in the foreign exchange business, coming to this scene and being able to give our inputs to see how we could help in many ways proliferate the uptake of both CBDCs, digital assets. I think it's going to be such an exciting chapter for not just an individual like myself, but also for the ecosystem at play.
Perfect. Well, just before we end the podcast, the only thing I have left to ask you, Jason, is what do you think is going to be the next wave in this crypto space? So 2021, we had DeFi, we had NFTs, we had GameFi. What do you think 2022 is going to bring us?
I think everyone's going to say NFTs, but I think it's been overly beaten up in a sense whereby if you look at NFTs today, just used by basic sense, right? Every single day, there are a few hundred new NFT projects that are being launched, right? If you look at every single project, you range from 10,000 to 100,000 new pictures or profiles or whatever and just by sheer volume, every single day, the number of content that is going, into the ecosystem, you're talking about hundreds of thousands, right? Or even the millions. And every single day, you're stacking more and more of these projects into an ecosystem play, and you cannot evade that. You have the likes of the best, the cyberpunks, the Bored Apes, which kind of own that OG blue chip kind of space. The Azukis are coming up, but of course the plan is that what happens to the other 99.9999% of projects that come into this space? So I think that's going to be a lot of hype. But what I'm more interested to see is the utility use case of NFTs. Not just about buying a Bored Ape and having a Bored Ape wear a Adidas hoodie and you earn the coins out of that. I'm talking about like use cases in the world of NFTs where, for example, with the return of travel, with more VTLs being created where travel is going to be more prevalent cross boundaries, cross regions, can NFTs play a role in the return to tourism? And let me give you an example. I was just reading an article the other day, and I think it was Amber Group launched a research paper on how NFTs is going to change the way going forward and the applicability of such NFTs. And there was one particular thing that kind of struck me, which was NFTs being used in the space of Airbnb. I don't know if you use Airbnb, Sean, but when you go overseas, sometimes the landlord says, "Oh, go to this convenience stop and collect your key," and then you have to walk like 1 mile away, collect your key, and then lug your luggage back to the room. It's very tiring, right? But if you think about it, if I know that Sean is going to be staying at my apartment from Monday 9 a.m. to Friday 9 p.m., what I could do is that I could just let you have an app or a wallet where I could send you an NFT, and the NFT should be programmed to allow access to my house from 9 a.m. Monday to 9 p.m. Friday. You go there, right? You tap your NFC technology, which is linked to your MetaMask or maybe a wallet that holds that NFT, and you gain access to the room. Right? At the end of the day, your visit, you leave the house, just, your NFT will be deactivated. The next person that comes in at 9 a.m. on Saturday has a refreshed smart contract NFT, which allows him to use it for however however long it stays. Right? Just think about that, right? That helps people live more comfortably. And in the world of COVID, which is going to be, an endemic situation, you can't evade from the fact that you want to reduce less contact. I don't want to shake your hands, I don't want to touch your keys, I just want to pay you money offline, online, whatever, off-ramp, on-ramp, and I'm done, right? I'm just going to use your house and happy-go-lucky, give you a good 5-star review. That's what you want, right? So I'm just giving the example as a use case, like how NFTs, the technology behind NFTs could be used beyond going for nice dinners in a Japanese restaurant or buying Irene Dao's NFTs and Googling over them. But yeah, in a very utility-based world where you could not only just own a profile picture, but in this case, use it for the life that is just around the corner.
It's quite interesting you said this. So I have been speaking to a number of projects. Actually, one of the podcasts before this one was done with a protocol called music.fm. And basically what this protocol is aiming to do is basically allow musicians to tokenize their future royalties from certain albums and put that into an NFT so that they can then receive funding for new projects. So they use the future income streams of their old projects to gain some revenue up, some investments up front to fund a new studio album, etc., etc. So that's probably one example of NFTs becoming useful. And okay, well, it's gone. It's gone. It's gone. But yeah, I completely understand what you mean. I mean, basically, NFTs doing more than just being JPEGs.
Yeah, you gotta go beyond that, right? I mean, I think if you think about you could still buy a Azuki and put it on your Facebook profile. No one's gonna stop you from doing that. What I'm trying to say is that if you're gonna make visible change in people's lives, you're gonna do it in a way where people get to use it every day. Let's give you an example. Right? I mean, in China, the rise of Alipay and WeChat Pay, it came at the back of a digital transformation, right? People went from you having no computers to straight to the smartphones, and then now they're paying every single thing using a digital wallet. And if you think about that, the reason why it was so well taken up was because of the fact that it's easy, accessible, and it's an integral part of life. So if NFT technology can be used in the way you just mentioned, where not it empowers the people that need the money, or in a way that you can empower people traveling, I think when people who may not be used to the world of crypto, NFT technology, blockchain, Web3, metaverse, they get access to this and they use it and they say, hey, this is actually very interesting. I save time, save energy. It's gonna stick. So why not? If I think we are at a stage whereby we can empower people's lives, change the world, right? And have some technology put into place that, again, in the world of COVID, really kind of prevent unnecessary infections while empowering lives. Why not?
Well, thank you, Jason, so much for being part of this podcast. Before I let you leave, can you give a shout out to any socials or websites you would like our listeners to visit?
I think definitely visit Sean's, right? You have a great repertoire of events, right? I really like that. And I think, you do things in a very different way because you do go deep in the topics that you discuss, but at the same time, you also draw it back with a level of, if someone's on the street who doesn't know crypto, if I listen to that, I get it, right? And I think that helps not only in the entertainment, infotainment, adoption, but it also helps average listeners who may not know crypto so much feel like they are part of the community. And I think this is such a powerful statement. And I think definitely everyone should rally to your cause. And and of course visit M-DAQ.com and find out more about what we do. But I think it's such an honor again to be here with you, Sean, and to be able to share my little 5 cents and see how we can change the world together.
Well, thank you for your kind words. Do you also want to shout out your Twitter or your LinkedIn or whatever?
Oh yeah, I'm at The Real Jason Tay on LinkedIn, so do hit me up there. Why I say the real Jason Tay, because I told you before, Sean, I'm probably the only Singaporean that can sound like Donald Trump, so I gotta go back to my roots. So yeah, in the words of Donald Trump, if I were to give a shout out to your podcast, look folks, you gotta listen to this great podcast because it's gonna be huge, so huge, trust me, it's gonna be fantastic. So all the very best, Sean. I think it's gonna be huge.
The Real Jason Tay, because there's too many fake news, right? Too much fake news.
So true. Fake news. CNN, CNBC, fake news.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast. I will have all of that info in the show notes below, and we'll see you on next episode. Bye guys.
Bye.
The Insider's Insight podcast is meant for informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial or investment advice. Nothing expressed in this podcast should be construed as a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer to buy or sell any financial products. Information expressed by the host or guest of this podcast does not necessarily reflect any views of our sponsors.